We have special guest Matt Walsh is with us. He's a political activist, author, podcaster, columnist. He is the host of the Matt Walsh Show podcast and writes his column for the conservative website, The Daily Wire. He has authored 4 books and starred in the Daily Wire documentary films, What is a Woman? And most recently, Am I Racist?, which I saw a special screening of. It's scheduled for release on September 13th. Please welcome to the show, Matt Walsh. Hey, Matt, how are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Now, before we get to the new movie, what is a woman? Did you ever figure that out?
Well, I don't want to give spoilers away, but we did figure it out at the very end of the film. We discovered apparently it's an adult human female. Who would have thought?
I don't even know what is a female. That's the next movie, I think. What is a female?
We just keep going deeper and deeper. It's the franchise.
Keep going. Now, how much do people try to? Now you've been considered a transphobe and all that stuff for doing that. And have you found that your message connects people from the populist left and the populist right? Have you seen a cross section of people coming together?
Yeah, we have. I mean, that was the interesting thing with the last film, with What is a Woman, that you didn't, even though I might be a crazy right winger, you don't have to be radically right wing. You don't have to be conservative at all to affirm the basic reality of human biology. In fact, up until very recently, that was not a political issue remotely. So it's like, and I think even on this next film, Am I Racist?, we're dealing with race. But it's a similar sort of situation where you don't actually have to be conservative to enjoy the movie, or even to agree with the basic ideas that are presented. You know, sort of the message behind the film is one that I think is again, not all that long ago, it wouldn't have been considered even a political message.
Well, I just think it's interesting that, my friend Keaton makes the point, or maybe Russ says that, you'd be the kind of guy who'd be, writing on Saturday Night Live in the 70s, and I was conditioned to think, conservatives don't have a sense of humor, right? They're not funny. And watching that movie, it was really hilarious. And, the way you can straight face stuff is, it's you're really nailing that technique. And it was a real, plus it was, to me, I describe it as, it was if you like Borat or those movies, but except this has a point and it actually sticks his chin out. It's not just silly, funny. It's funny with a real point and a purpose, but it's not like smothering you with it either. Let me play the. So that's the trailer for the movie, and the thing that I liked maybe the most about the movie, besides the humor, it was funny all the way through. So many funny parts, but you highlighted in a perfect way that the people who are actually carrying on Martin Luther King's message of being colorblind and judging someone by the content of their character is not the Ivy League educated, but it's actually the people where the rubber meets the road, right? You went into a biker bar and you'd expect them all to be these, they weren't. They were the opposite of racists. They were, they kept saying to you, why do you keep making that the focus of everything? Why do you focus on, and that's what I find is with the liberal elite, the professional managerial class. They put everything through the prism of race these days. And that was, I just want to say that was a great way to expose that. And in fact, in parts of the movie, there were, just regular people saying that you were racist as that character.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so go ahead, take it where you want.
Yeah. Well, I think you're exactly right. And what you find is that normal, everyday people, especially if they kind of exist outside of this DEI bubble, they haven't been exposed to corporate HR brainwashing sessions. If they're outside of that, then, especially in modern America, your kind of default position is, you notice when people are when someone's of a different race, but it's not a big deal. You don't focus on it that much. You're not sitting around worrying, oh my gosh, am I racist? Am I being racist? You're not thinking about that. And I think that's the default position of most normal people, which is what we find, as you point out, go to the biker bar, even though, going to a biker bar, it's a bunch of white guys. Confederate flags hanging on the walls and everything. And yeah, if you listen to corporate media, you would expect if you listen to them to walk in and hear nothing but just like vicious racism. Not what you hear at all. In fact, we immediately go from there to the black community in a very poor part of New Orleans and ask all the same kinds of questions. And we get almost like verbatim answers. In fact, in both places, I heard this. We all bleed the same color. That was kind of like their reflex line, and which is basically the Martin Luther King idea of judge someone by the content of their character. And then you compare that to we saw in the trailer, talking to one of these anti-racist so-called experts, and I brought up to her, well, didn't Martin Luther King said, judge him by the content of your character? And she said, well, Martin Luther King said a lot of stuff. And then she went on to talk about basically why he's wrong. So, which is interesting. What that tells us is like you've got these kind of grifter types, and they I think notice that the default position for most people is to not care that much about this stuff. That worries them because if you don't care, then that's less money and power and influence for them. So their whole job is to get you to care about this and to get you to focus on it, and to make race an issue when otherwise it wouldn't be. That's the whole scam.
So no, I just would like to get your opinion where all this comes from, because everybody thought, in fact, polls showed this and research showed this, that people thought that racism in America was declining and we were in a better place than we ever were. We elected Barack Obama overwhelmingly twice, a black guy with a Muslim name twice. And then all of a sudden, people have also noticed this, that then the mainstream news media started highlighting racism, white supremacy over and over and over. And that was right after Occupy Wall Street. And so the theory is that they saw because the Tea Party was upset about the Wall Street, and then they had the lefties on Occupy Wall Street. They were upset about Wall Street and what the government was bailing them out, and they had come together on this idea. And so the establishment had to figure out a way to divide people again, and they did it through planting all these stories of racism and using racism and white supremacy. And so it didn't really come from the ground up. This isn't something, just like the trans issue. I think that came from BlackRock, and that came from the top down to divide us. And the same thing. Would you agree that that's where this coming from, or do you have a different idea?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting theory. I basically agree. I certainly agree it didn't come from the ground up. This is a top-down situation here. It kind of filters down from these institutions, government, media, academia, filters down to the general population. I do think that, kind of ironically, Barack Obama's election probably is one of the main reasons why we're experiencing a lot of the racial strife we're experiencing right now, because now I was not an Obama voter, but you would think that the greatest evidence that there is no systemic racism in America anymore is when you elect a black man. Like if a black man can make it all the way to the very top of the system, voted there by the people, then that's really good evidence, you would think, that systemic racism is not an issue anymore. Which of course it is evidence of that. But then I think you had people on the left who were worried about that and said, well, okay, that's going to take this off the table now as a means of control and manipulation, and we can't have that. So they had to double down on the racism stories. And it wasn't long after, I think it was BLM came along as a movement in, I think, like 2013 or so. So it wasn't long after Obama's election, certainly after his reelection. And I think that's what it was. Like they couldn't allow America to say, okay, well, we still have a lot of issues, but systemic racism really isn't, it's not an issue anymore. Like we could cross that off the list and focus on other stuff. But I think a lot of these people didn't want that to happen. They couldn't allow it to happen. So they've had to go looking for racism, and they're looking for it in an increasingly desperate ways and finding it more and more in places where it obviously doesn't exist.
I mean, I'm not naive. I know racist people, right? I mean, I've come from the South Side of Chicago, but I don't think it's anywhere near the problem that they want to make. Just like the rest of the country, I think that problem has been receding, and that people, it's not the problem they make it out to be. But there is, you really reveal this in the movie, that there is this this cottage industry of not even of everybody, you getting their DEI certified cars. So now I can go out and teach
right.
DEI, and I was surprised to see that. Like, I didn't realize what a money-making endeavor it is to hyper focus on racism and people's race and inject it everywhere. Was that surprising to you to find that out, how much money there was in this?
Yeah, a little bit. And one thing we do in the film, you'll see when you watch it, that we even put up on the screen the amount of money we paid these people to appear in the film.
That was amazing.
And in some cases, it's going to be a lot more than you would have expected.
Way more.
Yeah, and which is, it's an interesting thing that, and we don't hide from the fact that we paid them to be in it. Now they didn't, like, it's not scripted. They didn't. It's all real. But we said to them, we want to talk about race, and and you would think that they care so deeply about this issue, they'd be happy to talk about it, and they wouldn't need to be paid for it. But they do need to be paid, which kind of shows that there is all that money in it. Why is there money in it? Well, I think it's like, in a way, it's similar to why there's a lot of money in medicine, in that people will pay a lot to be cured. And
yeah.
Now with medicine, hopefully it's like a real cure, a real treatment, although not always. But with the DEI grifters, they're selling a fake cure for a disease they basically invented. They tell people, well, you're racist, you're inherently racist, and here's what you could do to treat that illness. And they can charge, kind of, the sky's the limit. They can charge any amount of money because they got people who are scared and like, well, I don't want to be racist, cure me. But then, of course, the sad irony is that after they give you the cure and you've already paid the money, then they tell you that, oh, by the way, you're still racist because you're still white and you're never going to not be racist. I asked Robin DiAngelo this in the film, and she says that, in any given moment, you can be more racist or less racist as a white person, but you can never be not racist. That's not an option. Which, of course, I know for myself, I hear that and I think, well, like, no, I can be not racist. Like, I'm not racist. I actually am not. Being racist means that you hate people of other races, or you think they're inferior. That's what racism is. And if you don't have those feelings in your heart about other races, then congratulations, you're not racist. You might still be a very flawed person. We all are, but you're not racist. Like, you don't have to worry about that anymore. But again, they can't allow you to say that, because then that makes them irrelevant. And they can't tolerate that, certainly.
Let me show this next clip. This is, I'm so interested. So you went to what do they call this that you went to?
This is a session. It's kind of a support group for white people who are struggling with their white grief. And I think what they're grieving is their whiteness and the fact that they have privilege, and kind of just grieving because you're white, you're a bad person. And that's what they're grieving. So they all sit around in a circle, very like AA style. And there's this woman who's there to talk them through it. And I was able to attend one of these sessions and did my best to take part and, go on the journey with these people. It is a lot of white guilt, especially the scene right before this. The white guy says, I'm an asshole. He calls himself an asshole. And it makes me laugh. It made me laugh so hard. But how did you get, I was wondering as I was watching the film, how did you get your cameras in there? How did they allow you to come film? Yeah, that's one question people have. It's like, well, was this secret, was this hidden camera? It's not hidden camera. They all know that there's cameras in the room. They all signed waivers agreeing to be filmed. And, that's it. Now, why are they happy that this is what the film ended up being? Probably not. And why would they still appear? Like, why didn't they ask more questions? Why weren't they more skeptical? I don't know. Part of it is at least for the people that we paid, like, we gave them the money and they had the dollar signs in their eyes, and maybe they threw caution to the wind, and they're probably regretting it now, but it is what it is.
Okay, so let's play this and we'll talk about it.
White participants in the group feel that there's something in themselves that they have to overcome, when all that's being requested of you is that you be. Hello.
Hi.
How are you? How are
Sorry
you?
about that.
Oh, no problem. You good?
Yeah.
Yeah. Remind me of your name again.
Steven.
Steven? Yeah? Okay. Did you want to come up?
Come up?
Yeah. Do you want to come up and share anything?
Sure. What do you want me to share?
Whatever's on your
I
mind.
just want to know that, like, my physical safety and yours and everybody else's here is okay.
Why would your physical safety not be okay? Did I miss something?
I don't feel comfortable.
What? Can you guys catch me up to speed on what's going on here?
You don't need to be caught up. We're going to be silent.
Is it because I said I had 17 black friends? It might have been 15. It depends on how you count them.
I would really appreciate it if you left so that the people who actually want to be here and deserve to be here can get what they need.
I do want to be
Can
here.
you please leave?
I would like it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey.
Come with me.
Well,
Thank you.
I didn't consent to be touched.
I'm not offering to touch you. I'm offering to walk you out. Will you walk with me and I'll answer your questions?
Okay, I'll admit it. My name's not Steven. Maybe you already knew that. My name is Matt Walsh.
We know.
I just was here on this journey that I'm just starting, but I see that I'm not wanted.
If you were on your journey, then you would have told us who you were, your real name, but you didn't.
Are you saying I
Please
needed a
leave.
better disguise? Is that what you?
I don't know, maybe, but you can figure that out as you walk out the door.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Thank you so much. I really had a transformative experience myself, and my pronouns are he, him.
Transmit on track 2. What's your message?
I did everything I could to fit in. I opened up. I was raw and emotional. I told them about my black friends. It was no use. They rejected me, and they called the police. My mere presence in the room caused them pain. I'll never be accepted if I look like this. If they know that I'm Matt Walsh, I'll always be an outsider. I need to go deeper undercover, a whole new identity. If I want to be an ally, I need to look like one. Like someone who is progressive, tolerant, enlightened. Let me think. Have I ever met anyone like that? Ah, yes. Yes, I have.
What is a woman?
Why do you ask the question?
Racist. Rated PG-13.
White.
So I can't get over the guilt all those people have in that meeting. It was really, it's comical.
Yeah, it is. I mean, especially watching it back in the room, it doesn't feel as comical. It feels quite sad, actually. Because that was and what you see in the clip there is the end of what it ended up being the end of the workshop.
Yeah.
But there's a whole scene before that where I'm there and I'm interacting and in real time, it was actually like an hour and a half that we were there. And yeah, I mean, you go around the circle and all these people are telling their stories of revealing just this guilt and grief that they carry around with them all the time, which, yeah, I think mockery of these ideas is appropriate. Obviously, that's what we're doing here. And it's an effective tool, I think. But it is also just sad that these all, because what I want, if we weren't making a movie, what I would want to turn to those people and say is like, guys, you're okay. You don't need to be here doing this. You're fine. You're not, none of you are racist in this room. You wouldn't be, you're all fine. You're okay. Just go live your life and don't worry about this anymore. And, if I had said that to them, it would have been like the end of the movie way too quick. But
yeah.
But that's that's the truth.
Well, there was I don't know if it was at the dinner party or maybe it was in this meeting. There was a white woman. She said she was married to a black man, and she said he talked too loud sometimes, and so when she's asked him to not talk so loud, felt like she was being racist.
Yeah, I think that was Race to Dinner, and that was
it.
And that was another one where they go around the table, and we have some of this in the film. You can't. Most of it obviously doesn't make it in because it's a 90-minute film. But another thing where they go around the table and they ask people, in this case, it's all women at the Race to Dinner, give us examples of racism in your own life. And they all are ready, they're on the ball with examples of being racist. And I'm listening to it and I'm like, none of these, none of that is racism. Again, you guys are all fine. Well, you're not fine. You obviously have issues. Otherwise you wouldn't be here. But your issue is not that you're racist. But it's just for some people, this kind of emotional and psychological manipulation is very, very potent. And I hope that this movie can be a part of kind of deprogramming some of that to some extent.
Did you ever see that interview that Morgan Freeman did with Mike Wallace?
Yeah.
And he says, I don't want a Black History Month. Do you have a Jewish History Month? Do you want a White History Month? Do you want? And he said, then Mike Wallace says, well, how are we going to fight racism? And he said, stop talking about it. You know, I'll stop calling you a white man. You stop calling me a black. We'll just call each other human beings. I think I'm paraphrasing, but that's kind of like the message you found when you went to the where the rubber meets the road. You interviewed Black people, just regular, not a professional managerial class. I remember you asked him, you know, how do we get over racism? And he said, you know, just love each other. And you went, could it be really that easy?
Yeah.
Yes. Like, yes.
Yeah, that was and that was Milton, the mechanic down in New Orleans. We went down to New Orleans. It was a great, you know, it was just a very nice,
salt
kind
of the earth kind of guy.
Soul, yeah. And it was interesting talking to him. Again, it's, you know, this is probably a 30-minute conversation. Only a little bit can make it in the film. But he's just so outside of most of the stuff I'm throwing at him about DEI and systemic racism and all. It's not a part of his world at all. He's not thinking about any of that ever. Which is a success story, because this is all, you know, as we discover in the film, he's an immigrant. He moved here. So we should consider it a success story. He came here. He's got a job. He's a contributing member of the community. He doesn't feel like he experiences racism. He's not focused on it. He's just living his life. We should be able to call that like an American success story. And it is, except that these grifter types, they look at that and they see it as a problem to fix. Like, they want to take that guy. They want to take Milton and say, no, hold on. You stop being so happy and well-adjusted. You know, you should have problems. I'll tell you what they are. And that's what they want to do.
So what do you say about the people who bring up, which is an argument I often make, that the criminal justice system is systemically racist because, the crime bill, you know, put people in prison. So if you did, so black communities did crack, white communities did cocaine, you got much higher sentences for crack. And now they are much overrepresented in the prison population than their population numbers. And what do you say to that? What's your argument back to that?
Yeah, I would say I don't. We could talk historically about. Obviously, everyone acknowledges that in the course of American history, black people have been discriminated against, and there has been racism, obviously, in society. You can go all the way back to slavery existed as an institution in this country. We all know it existed as an institution across the whole world too, by the way, but it did happen in this country. Right now, though, I certainly do not think that there's systemic racism, systemic anti-black racism anywhere. It's not something, because systemic means it's embedded in the law. It's in policy. It means that, like, there are laws and policies that specifically target and disadvantage you if you are black. And that doesn't exist, which is why no one can give a specific example. Like, give me the policy that says if you're black, this bad thing's going to happen to you. Now, you can find it in the reverse. There are groups that are targeted. This is what affirmative action was for so long, where we are going to exclude and disadvantage you based on your race. But that was not targeting black people. That was white and then Asian. There's nothing like that happening in the reverse. And even in the criminal justice system, I think that, you know, yes, as you say, black people are overrepresented in prisons, but, you know, especially in urban communities in the cities, the violent crime rate is what it is. And especially young black males commit a disproportionate amount of particularly violent crime, which is probably why you find more of them in prison. I wish that wasn't the case, but it just simply is. We all know it. And then we kind of look at the prison, at the incarceration rate, and we're told that we're supposed to see, well, this is totally out of balance. Well, it's only out of balance if all of the races are committing these crimes at an equal clip. So you have to prove that first, and then you'd have a case that the incarceration rate is the result of systemic racism. But what we see from all of the available crime statistics is that that's not the case. That's that all the races don't commit crimes at equal rates, and so you'd expect to find that reflected in the incarceration rates too.
So yeah, just one. I would push back on that a little about So after they passed the Civil Rights Act and everybody was supposed to be equal, then Nixon started his war on drugs, which targeted over-policed black neighborhoods. The CIA's bringing crack into their and so they would break up families that way. They'd over-incarcerate. They would take the black male out of the house, put him in prison because of these drug. So I think if we got rid of the drug war was, I think, really much more injurious to the, black and brown community, and that'd be my one point that I would push back on that. If we could that was intentional, and then there's there's the for-profit prison system, and then you have someone like Kamala Harris who's black who kept people in prison so they could be used for their slave labor and stuff like that. So. Even when a black person's in charge of it, go ahead.
Yeah, well, one thing I'd say to that though is that I think like one of the major problems now in communities of all races, but in the black community in particular, is it's more of like an undercarceration problem where you've got violent criminals. You have these woke DAs who are letting violent criminals out or not arresting them, letting them out, arresting them again, letting them out, get second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth strike. And what does that end up happening? It's like, well, those violent criminals end up, they don't, they usually stay in those communities and target the innocent members of those communities. So like, to me, that's, if we want to talk about the criminal justice system, that's our major problem right now, is that you have violent, dangerous people who are being allowed to terrorize communities basically at will. And then the woke DAs, essentially, I guess their strategy is, well, we're going to let you keep committing crimes until you do something so heinous that even we have no choice but to put you in prison for at least a little bit of time. But when they do that heinous thing, like, someone's going to be the victim of that. Some old lady walking down the street is going to be the one who gets randomly stabbed to death by the hobo, and it's an awful thing.
Do you think that? I see those stories too. I feel the same outrage you do over stuff like that when they're letting violent people out. Is it because the prisons are filled? Because we're the largest penal colony in America, in the world, the United States. We incarcerate more people. We have 5% of the world's population. 25% of the incarcerated people are in the United States in prison. So, do you think it's because we incarcerated so many nonviolent drug offenders that we don't have any place to put them, or what? I mean, why do we have so many people?
I don't know that it's a matter of room, because if you listen to the woke DAs when they're justifying this stuff, and they might say a little bit about the over incarceration, there's no room, but like, that's not their main reason. Their main reason is that they will give themselves is, well, this is about restorative justice and all these buzzwords. So for them, no matter how much room's in the prison, what they're saying is, we just don't believe in, like, doctrinally, they don't believe in justice. They don't believe in making the bad guys pay for their crimes, especially if they're part of an improved victim group, demographic wise. And so that's the reason they think that it's oppressive, I guess, to hold somebody accountable for things that we all agree are like terrible crimes that should be punished.
So now you're a self-described conservative, and I consider myself a liberal, but not modern day liberal. That they're not. They've turned their. So I'm for freedom of speech. I'm against censorship. I'm for bodily autonomy. Right. I've always been anti-war. I'm for ending the wars, investing that money back here. I'm for getting cleaning up the corruption inside our regulatory corporate capture of our all that stuff that Bobby Kennedy was saying at that Trump rally, right? And he got a stadium full of Republican voters to cheer for all that stuff that I go one step further. I'm also for Medicare for all, right? Now, how many of those things would you and I disagree on?
I think on basic principles you just outlined, I think we would line up pretty well. I mean, we don't, we talk about bodily autonomy, for example. It depends on, is that going into abortion? I don't believe in abortion. But if you mean like
forced medical procedures,
right? We shouldn't force people to take vaccines. Like, I'm with you on that. Free speech, totally with you on that. And so I think there's a lot of alignment, and I do think between someone like you and me, there's probably almost certainly a lot more alignment between us than there would be if instead of me sitting here, it was Syra Rao, like one of the people from our film. If one of them was sitting here, I think you'd probably have less, I imagine, less in common with them. And on free speech in particular, it's like, for me, people act like it's a complicated issue. I don't think it's all that complicated. I'm a simple man. Maybe I tend to simplify things, but I kind of think you have the right to share your opinion, period. And if it's an awful opinion, we can tell you that, which is not the same thing. Do you have the right to say literally anything you want all the time? No, of course not. You don't have the right to threaten to kill someone. You don't have the right to, defame someone and that sort of thing. But that's not an opinion. If you're expressing your opinion, your point of view, people should be free to do that and let it all out in the open. And we could, if someone has a repugnant opinion about something, we can expose that. So to me, it's like, it should be pretty simple. Okay.
All right. Well, you got to go. I appreciate you coming in. I love the movie. I thought it was, I thought you were sticking your chin out and doing it in a comedic way that often, I'm a comedian, and so comedy often can help illuminate an issue better than anything. And I think it really does in this movie. So thanks for coming in. Nice to meet you, buddy.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. Hey, come see us on tour. We'll be in Duluth, Georgia, Jacksonville, Florida, Los Angeles, Tempe, Arizona, and Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for those tickets.